Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Only Stupid Answers. This is the show where we answer your questions about movies, TV shows, comic books, and Avengers Doomsday's casts. Oh, so much Doomsday. Such a long... Adam, what was the final... Do you know what the final countdown was for... how long the stream was?
5.5 hours.
Why?
I would love to talk to someone at marketing and just ask them, whose idea was this?
Why?
And why did you approve it?
No. What was that for?
Why?
Why? Yeah.
So unnecessary.
So unnecessary. Fortunately, we have Mr. Adam Hlavac here today who watched the entire stream, whether he liked it or not. And we're going to be going over the final Doomsday roster. As of right now, my understanding is that there might be, some secrets. Shocker. There might be some secrets they're holding back. And we'll talk a little bit about that. But that's going to be our main topic for today. But before we get into all of that, we are going to be talking about, we're going to be answering some of your comments from a previous episode when Roxy and I were discussing Daredevil Born Again. This was right when it premiered. We're like hip deep in it now. I think they just dropped episode like 5 or 6 or 7. I don't have it in front of me.
5 and 6.
5
together.
and 6. Oh my goodness. So these were some of the comments you left on that video. I loved the first 2 episodes. I almost cried when Foggy died. Looking forward to the rest of the season. This is from 11th Cub fan. At Panda Go Crazy, worst one in the history of the show, unfortunately. Here for the next one, and hopefully it'll be better. Adam, I was pretty vocal about, I thought that opening oneer looked like trash. And it made me worried for the show. I was like, this is a shaky opening. What did you think of it?
Well, it's kind of hard to go into that show without the context and understanding of like they reshot all that stuff.
Yeah.
And they did it, I think, kind of towards the end of when the show was originally being photographed. It's like the first new thing maybe they shot. So it's like I'm trying to understand from that sort of space of like, okay, this wasn't something that was fully thought out from the very beginning. They did it not at the 11th hour necessarily, but I for the most part, like, I enjoyed it. It's like I also come from a visual effects background, so it's like I'm bringing a lot of baggage to the table where I'm trying to understand sort of the matrix code of how they did it. So like I liked it for that stuff. Could it have been executed better? Yeah, of course. There's always opportunities for things to be executed better. But I really liked the impact of it because it really just kind of sets the groundwork for why Matt does what he does. So
yeah,
it was fine.
Yeah, it was interesting. I think conceptually on the page, I understand it and it worked. I think anytime you're going to do a oneer and you start introducing CG elements, you're missing the appeal of it. You're missing the appeal of doing a single take. Like the second Bullseye came in with the tear gas, I'm like, uh-oh.
Well, and it doesn't help that tear gas element also stands out so much.
Yeah.
And you can tell that a lot of those elements are fake. You can tell that the CG double for Daredevil in some of the parts where he does like certain acrobatic things is fake.
Yeah.
And I think that's the hard thing. And that's the thing that I talk about with Marvel all the time. I'm like, guys, if you're going to conceptualize these very ambitious things, you have to do it really far in advance. You have to do a lot of previs.
Yeah.
And you have to give the visual effects artists as much time as possible.
Yeah.
Because if you don't, that's the result you're going to get. And then you can't be surprised when people talk shit about it online.
Yeah.
Because you didn't give the artists the amount of time that it requires. And it requires a lot. If you want the physics to look correct and you don't want it to look like it's splotched together.
Yeah.
Sorry, like that's what it is.
And truthfully, even if you were going to do, because in my opinion, that first oneer in what was it, episode 2 of the Netflix show is still unbeaten. Because to me, that understands the appeal of this is all choreography. This is all camera work. This is all you know what I mean. For the most part, in camera tricks and stuff like that. And that's what makes it. If you look at movies as a magic trick, that's what makes the magic trick cool. And
there's a lot of shows that I feel like, and I don't think Daredevil inspired this necessarily, but I think once people saw that becoming more of a thing that audiences found appealing, so many shows have done it since then. Mike Flanagan has done it in a bunch of shows, but I think it's exactly what you're saying. It's choreographed to perfection. They know exactly where they're handing off the camera to what person. They know exactly at what moment to tie it to a line, to run it up a set of stairs.
Yeah.
It's very meticulously crafted. So I think if you're just trying to do something for the sake of making it appealing to audiences, because it's the thing that they remember from the last show, but you're not, because at a certain point you have to look on the page and go, is this actually doable and realistic in the time and with the budget that we have? Because I have to imagine for a lot of the reshoots, their budget was also cut. Like, I don't know if Marvel necessarily and Disney were like, well, we know we spent this much money on the first 6 episodes in the original version of the show. We'll give you that budget back. I don't know if that's the case or not. If they were like, well, we can give you some budget back, but you're not going to get it all back. Then at that point, I would have been like, okay, well, then we're going to save it for episode 6, 7, or 8, or 9, and we're not going to do it in the first few episodes. But then the hard part is like, that was such an appealing part of the show that from a filmmaking perspective, I understand why they did it. But at the same time, I'm like, if you ain't got the money and the time to do it right, don't do it.
Especially since as the show's gone on, all the way, even as early as the end of episode 2, there's a fight sequence at the end of episode 2. That once they get into edited choreographed fights, the fights look pretty sick. Like they've gotten really good. So it's like, I like you said, I get it. There's that audience expectation, but again, if you can't execute at that level, don't bother. Just don't bother. Just do an edited fight scene, because the idea of Daredevil fighting Bullseye that leads to the death of one of his friends is like, that's a strong opening. Also, maybe give Bullseye his comic costume is all I'm going to say. If you're going to give him a costume, just commit. Just commit.
Yeah. Well, and again, I think that's the hard part about that opening sequence is like, and I know other people notice it too. You can feel the visual effects of it. Like you can feel that it's a lot of composited shots, composited elements. And I think that's the hard part. I think that's what's so like, that's the biggest bummer. Because I think overall, like everything else has worked out pretty nicely for that show. And I think that like the Matt Murdock of it all is for me just as interesting as the Daredevil part of it. So I like that all of that stuff for the most part works really well. But it is a bummer that in the opening 6 minutes of the very, very first episode where you have a ton of expectations, that it doesn't all fire at 100%.
Yeah. Last comment is from Handsome Ransom 94. I will say, when it comes to Daredevil Born Again, the fighting seems different to say the least, but not in a bad way. I feel like Netflix's Daredevil was more of a heavy striker that was still quick and agile, similar to someone like Chuck Liddell or Rashad Evans. In Born Again, he seems more calculated and patient, kind of like Anderson Silva, where he looks like he basically put no power in his strikes, but still put heads to bed. I'm interested to see how it evolves throughout the show, because he fights differently depending on his opponent. For example, his fight with Kingpin looks different than his fights with the Hand. So I guess we'll wait and see. I love the show so far. Well, I don't have those points of references for the MMA stuff. I don't have any points of reference for that. But I believe you. I believe you. So I will say, and originally before the Doomsday casting dropped, my plan was to talk about the most recent episodes of Daredevil. You and I discussed it briefly because you've seen the whole season. See,
I have.
Yeah,
I have.
I'm not. I'm watching it as it airs. And like I said, started out first couple episodes. I like the end of the second episode. First couple episodes, I felt that you can feel this was one show and now it's another show. Now it feels more cohesive, and something this show does that I think I would argue is better than the Netflix show, is by embracing a weekly episodic format that allows you more narrative flexibility. So you could say, hey, this episode is actually going to kind of be a bottle episode where there's a bank robbery and Matt ingratiates himself in there and he has to figure out how to save these hostages. And for me, that might be one of my favorite Daredevil episodes, period. Like I was like, this is great. This is such a cool premise. This is such a good superhero premise. It's well executed. We got a little bit of the Easter eggs with Kamala's dad in there. I don't know about you, Adam, but I was like, I would hate to see Charlie Cox's Daredevil interact with Kamala Khan. That would be interesting.
Yeah, well, it was funny because when we initially watched it, my reaction at the end of that episode was like, I want to see Matt Murdock go to Kamala's house for dinner. Literally opens the door, he greets the dad, He walks in, the door closes, and you hear, "This is my daughter, Kamala," and then that's the end of the episode. That's the end of the season. I thought that would be really, really great. Yeah, and I really enjoyed that episode. And I made a comment in our original reaction where I said this is going to be tonal whiplash for people, because I was under the impression, and maybe I was wrong, because I knew that it was a bottle episode. My whole sort of like outlook on it was that the audience is not going to like it because it is a bottle episode.
Yeah.
Because I feel like we've gone to a point with a lot of these Disney Plus, Marvel, Star Wars shows, and maybe it's even like the DC stuff, but we just haven't had as many of those, where every episode has to be a banger firing on all cylinders. It's got to be a 10. It's got to be a 10. It's got to be a 10.
Yeah.
It's got to be going at 100 miles an hour. And I liked that episode. I liked that it let you breathe for a moment. And I liked that it was just Matt in a situation and he has to figure out how to get out of it while also protecting all these people. And it does in some ways, start to change his opinion, or maybe start to get the gears going in his head of like, maybe Daredevil must be, like maybe it's inevitable that Daredevil has to exist because of things like this. And the fact that they were able to incorporate Kamala's dad into it is really great. I like that little bit of connection. I'm glad that they didn't just decide, well, let's just put Kamala in it. Let's just put this superhero in it. I don't think I would have liked that as much. I like that it's a supporting character from another show that gets to be in there. So I think the other thing, that we all tend to talk about a lot is how a lot of the time these shows feel like they're a 2.5, 3 hour movie that's just subdivided into sections and put on Disney Plus.
Yeah.
And I think what makes this feel like a TV show more so than a lot of the other ones is the fact that it has a bottle episode to make it feel like it is just a standard TV show. And I think the advantage also that it has over the Netflix version is that it's shorter. Yeah. I love that Netflix Daredevil show, but even the 13 episodes, I felt like sometimes in the middle, it would hang and drag a little. And I'm like, okay, I think we could have finished this in like 9-10 episodes. So the fact that they are doing that with this and they are giving it just the 9 episodes is great. And yeah, I really enjoyed episode 5. And then you get into episode 6 and we're right back to story. And it's tonally very, very much more brutal. And
definitely.
So it was great.
And it's much more, I guess, because spoilers for this week's episode, that's where we get him going back in Daredevil. And what was interesting too is like, that's right, I haven't seen him in the Daredevil costume since the beginning of episode 1. And what's funny is I didn't miss it. Like, obviously I'm excited. I'm watching a Daredevil show. I want to see him be Daredevil. But the fact that I have felt engaged this entire time, it's like, you guys you're doing good. You're doing good.
I think it's so insane when I see people posting things on social media and they're like, I'm watching the show for Daredevil. It's called Daredevil, not Matt Murdock. And I'm like, but they're the same guy.
Yeah.
It's the same person. If you can't fall in love with the show with Daredevil just being the lawyer, then if that means 50% of the show is failing. Like if you just want the superhero, I would truthfully never want a Batman movie that's just Batman full time.
Absolutely.
I would not. Because at some point I'm like, cool, like, all right, I need to see something else. I need some variety. I want to know like who is Bruce Wayne as a character, what makes him tick, what are his relationships like with all the characters in the real world? Because Batman doesn't interact with anyone, especially in the movies. They don't give him any sidekicks.
Yeah.
He only interacts with Alfred mostly. So you're just really just getting him and his relationships with the villains in the film. And I think like that's not sustainable for a 2-hour movie. So you can't expect every scene to just be Daredevil fighting Muse, fighting Fisk, fighting whatever other villains show up. So it's got to work on both sides. And I think that, in my opinion, it's worked incredibly well. Like the court case drama of episode 3 was so strong. I loved that so much.
Yeah.
And I've even said this about Superman and Lois. There are episodes where Superman never shows up, and it is just as compelling, if not more compelling, when it's just Clark and Lois being parents, being reporters, and so I don't know. Just sometimes I see that stuff and I'm like, oh my God, if you made shows, they'd be so fucking boring.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting. We've got Mike Joyce says in the chat, thanks to everybody that joins us live or watches later on Patreon, patreon.com/onlystupid-answers. I really liked the bottle episode, although I don't know why they'd have one in a 9-episode season. Again, for me, it's it's the character stuff is important.
Yeah.
And so, especially since this is kind of season 4 of a show in a lot of ways, the
It's
fact
so
that
weird.
it's like let's put Matt. We haven't seen Matt do this. In fact, none of the Marvel shows have been like, hey, let's just put a guy in this situation. Yeah, do that stuff. That's the I think that's one of the powers. That was one of the powers of the CW shows, the CW superhero shows. You just mentioned Superman and Lois, but like because they had more breathing room, they're like, well, what if Arrow does this? What if Oliver Queen does this thing for this episode? And I think there's, even if it's not important for the lore or the plot, it is important for character. And it tells us a lot about Matt. And I think it tells us about how Matt fits in the world. And again, I just like the idea, just a reminder that, by the way, in the same world where Matt Murdock is facing a serial killer that uses people's blood for paint, Kamala Khan's like running around with with Captain Marvel.
Yeah, totally. Absolutely. Yeah. And I think, like, again, I don't need that deep connectivity to the point where I need Kamala in the show.
Yeah.
But just the recognition or the mentioning of there being more things in that universe. Even when Wilson Fisk just offhandedly mentions like a guy in a spider costume, I'm like, great, that's great. I don't need to see Spider-Man, but just the fact that you make that reference, I'm like, awesome. That's perfect. I think for character building, those episodes are important because it just gets you to understand Matt more. I mean, truthfully, again, I know it's called Daredevil Born Again, but Vincent D'Onofrio is a co-lead in this show.
100%.
I would have even been fine with them just going off and doing a Kingpin episode where maybe we see Matt once, if at all.
Yeah.
I think like that character is interesting enough that you could do something like that, and I'd be all into it.
And wow, he wrecks that poor guy at the end of that episode.
Oh my god.
Oh man.
Oh god.
Anyway, stay tuned to the show. We'll keep talking about Daredevil Born Again. But speaking of the connected universe, this is going to lead us into, we're going to do things a little bit differently this week, gang. Because I do have a news, all of it's basically news, because we're going to be talking about the Avengers Doomsday casting, but there was a little bit of news about Spider-Man 4. I'm going to hold on that because I think that's more pertinent to post. That movie comes out after Doomsday, and it is more pertinent to that conversation of where is this leading us. So this week they did the full announcement for the next Avengers movie, Avengers Doomsday, and it's very fortuitous that we have Mr. Adam Hlavac here because he did an amazing composite of all the characters that he is graciously letting us use to make my life a lot easier. And also, if you guys aren't following Heroes Reforged already, you really should, not just for their amazing content, but for stuff like this, because you've posted images of like, the DC timeline and stuff like that, and where everything fits in. And it's very
that's like one of the fun things that we've started doing that surprisingly does really well for us is like, oh, you want to know what order you need to watch stuff? Here's a graphic. Oh, you want to know what movies are connected? Here's a graphic.
Yeah. And I know you, even before Daredevil Born Again, you did a rundown of like, here's all the places Matt's shown. Here's like the timeline, and it was a reminder of like, oh, that's right, Matt was in Echo. There was a whole Echo TV show. I totally forgot about that.
Yeah, and like again, that's part of the reason why we do it, because even sometimes people are like, why do I got to watch this whole movie for this one thing? And I'm like, well, I don't know, it might be a very pivotal plot point in the film. Like when we did one for Brave New World, people were like, why do I got to watch Eternals? I'm like, well, because the Celestial in the ocean is a part of the story as far as we know,
like the main plot point.
Whether or not it ends up being like a major part of the story, that's remains to be seen, but it does introduce adamantium into the MCU, so it gives you some context, I guess.
Yeah. So here's we go, gang. Coming out May 1st. Strap in. May 1st. And Adam and I were lamenting at the beginning of this that there was, you said, it was 5 hour stream, whatever. It was like, what did you, 5.5 hours? 5.5 hours.
So unnecessary.
Well, when I went back just to see the Robert Downey Jr. bit, it was the 90 seconds, and it's like, why not just this then? Why not?
I know
people would have been just as hyped, but here we go. We have Chris Hemsworth, Vanessa Kirby, Anthony Mackie, Sebastian Stan, Letitia Wright, Paul Rudd, Wyatt Russell, Tanoch Huerta Mejia, who I thought got Me Too'd, but I guess we're not dealing with that. We're not gonna.
I don't know. I don't follow these things enough.
Yeah.
Like I follow them if they're like right in the dead center of my timeline.
Yeah.
But I like saw that it was on some website that never had a follow up, and I'm like, what's the deal here?
Yeah,
people?
I don't know. I tried to follow up for this, and it was a little murky. So I was like, all right, I guess we're not dealing with it. Evan Moss Bachrach, Simu Liu, Florence Pugh, Kelsey Grammer, Louis Pullman, Danny Ramirez, Joseph Quinn, David Harbour, Winston Duke, Hannah John Kamen, Tom Hiddleston, Patrick Stewart, Ian McKellen, here's the X-Men gang, Alan Cumming, Rebecca Romaine, James Marsden, Channing Tatum, Pedro Pascal, and Robert Downey Jr., who we already knew about. He's coming in to play Doom. Okay. So, Adam, you were keeping up with this. What were your initial thoughts as all this was dropping?
I got called a little bit of a wait. Someone said something about my tweet being a little bit. What's the word? I don't remember. They said something along the lines of like, how are you not surprised by any of this? And I'm like, Kevin Feige has been a producer in some capacity on these films since X-Men 1.
Yep.
Of course he wants to play with all the toys.
I'm
not surprised. And some people, not even Alan Cumming surprised you. He had a terrible experience on X-Men 2. I'm like, yeah, because he's probably not going to sit in the makeup chair for 8 hours to put all that shit on.
Yeah, they're probably going to CG him now.
They're probably going to CG it, or they're going to, the technology has advanced so much in 22 years, that it'll be a 1 hour process maybe. So yeah, I'm not really surprised. And I'm not the most familiar with the Secret Wars comic books, but I know enough to understand that, okay, if there is going to be some sort of a merging of the universes, some sort of a rebooting of the universe, and them cherry picking the things that they want to keep and not keep, it makes total sense that they're going to bring in every era of movie. Truthfully, like I was expecting more to the level of like, I'm not going to be surprised if they're like Nicolas Cage is returning as Ghost Rider.
Yeah.
It wouldn't surprise me. So it's cool to see. Like my biggest thing with this is like, great, you're bringing back James Marsden as Cyclops. He better do something fucking epic.
Yeah.
I want to see Cyclops, that version specifically, give him something that brings like justice to that version of the character, because I feel like he was done so dirty in all of those X-Men movies.
Yeah, I totally agree. So it's interesting for me. So I wanted to point out what we've got here is kind of a combination of multiple teams. And I will say I did a Blue Sky. I don't know what we call Blue Skies. I'm not really doing the Twitter thing anymore, so I'm on Blue Sky. The Blues. I skied something about how like, man, we're finally getting a movie that's going to feature the Avengers and the Fantastic Four and the X-Men on screen together, and they're all going to be from different universes and different timelines. And it's like, we'll see, because I think it feels, obvious isn't the right word, but I feel kind of confident that like this is going to be bye-bye to the Fox X-Men one. Like like there is a non-zero chance that like the opening sequence is all these actors that were just announced, right? I tried to loop off all our X people. There's a chance where we see all of them go, oh no, as their universe gets destroyed, and that's how all these people are in the movie. I thought about that too, and I thought like, some of these roles are not going to be as big as I think some people expect. Yeah. And by necessity. I'll be happily surprised if they are actually like pivotal chunks of the film where we get to see all of these characters together for a very long duration. Yeah. But yeah, and I mean, I also just think like we just had Deadpool and Wolverine come out, and the whole end credits of that movie is saying goodbye to the Fox universe. And now we're doing it again. Yeah. And Professor X is probably going to die again. And we're going to see, I'm just like, how many more times are we going to see these goddamn characters be killed off? How many more goddamn times are we going to say goodbye to these characters? How many more cameos are these actors going to make in these movies? Ian McKellen's 85, so he's got another 5 years left on his contract. I guess. Yeah. Well, it's funny. You're right. Because also Logan was a good goodbye to this universe and all that stuff. My God. And that's something I do I think they're overestimating the nostalgia people have for, because I don't know anyone, and I don't know everybody, but I don't know anybody by the time Dark Phoenix came out or New Mutants rolled around that was just chomping at the bit. I think everybody was like, yeah, let's do something new. I'm ready for
Yeah,
the new.
yeah.
I'm ready for the new MCU versions of these. And the MCU's like, no, we're gonna keep dragging out these Fox people. I'm like, I think we're all
Yeah.
kind of done with the Fox people. Unfortunately for
Yeah.
you.
I know, and and it's a bummer because like we're all going to the movie no matter what.
Yeah.
So that's sort of like a non-question, right? We're all going to go because we're all curious to see what the hell are they actually going to do. But yeah, there is definitely a big chunk of me that's like, cool, 13-year-old me is excited for this because I've seen every Marvel movie since X-Men 1 in theaters.
Yeah.
There's another part of me that's like the adult version of me that's like, cool, man, I did this when I was a kid. I lived through all this.
Yeah.
When are we doing something new? When are we going to introduce the new X-Men? And I think it would be, again, I'm not saying that they are doing this. I don't think that they're going to do this at all. I think very much they're going to just like kill off these other universes.
Yeah.
We're going to have like our prime universe, our sacred timeline universe, and then they'll eventually introduce the new X-Men. But I am at that point where I'm like, oh my God, like 2019, Kevin Feige was teasing at Comic-Con. We haven't even told you about the X-Men yet. I'm like, it's been 5 goddamn years.
Yep.
Do something already with it, man.
Yeah.
Like, I think everyone's tired of the multiverse saga, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
I think on paper, there was a lot of really cool stuff that they could have been doing. And I think some of it worked. And I think audiences also had like a weird negative reaction to the multiverse saga where it's like, oh, it's nothing but cameos. I'm like, well, that's kind of the concept of the multiverse saga, though.
Yeah.
It's all about bringing in these other variant versions. And if you're expecting them to all of a sudden become like the main timeline versions, that's also unreasonable in my opinion, because that defeats the purpose of what a multiverse saga is. So it's a little bit of a mixed bag, but yeah, I am looking forward to the end of this constantly regurgitating the Fox X-Men characters back to us and just finally setting up like the main sacred timeline version of these characters and letting them have their time in the spotlight. And yeah, so I don't know, mixed, excited, somewhat over it, but still looking forward to whatever the future holds.
So here is the different. We've been talking about the X-Men, and of course, of this announcement, the X-Men lineup is Kelsey Grammer, Patrick Stewart, Ian McKellen, Alan Cumming, Rebecca Romaine, James Marsden, and Channing Tatum. I think Channing Tatum here is the bell. Channing Tatum and Kelsey Grammer, and I guess Patrick Stewart from Multiverse of Madness are the example of like, we're definitely going to see the versions. We're going to see these actors in costumes that reflect X-Men 97, the X-Men animated series.
Yeah.
Like that's what this is going to be.
Yeah. Well, and that's the other thing too, is like they never establish verbally whether or not, and because I think we also can look at it and go, okay, that's not the Charles Xavier from the 2000 X-Men movie.
Yeah.
Because that's the different version, blah, blah, blah. I think you're totally right. I think if you're bringing in Channing Tatum and you're bringing in the Beast character that looks exactly like he does in the comics and in the animated series, it's going to be some sort of amalgamation of that universe, right?
Yeah.
It's going to be Cyclops, probably in the classic blue and yellow costume. And it's just going to be them taking all those different ideas and concepts that and really, I mean, they played the X-Men theme song from X-Men 92 or X-Men 97 when they announced Patrick Stewart.
Yeah.
So yeah, we know what you're doing. You're just tapping into our like memory of being kids and loving that show.
Absolutely. And I will get into it in a second, but I think there's some notable omissions here, but I think not all of these characters, specifically those X-Men characters, I don't think they're making it to Secret Wars. I think this is their like swan song for them, because I think it's kind of suspicious that Hugh Jackman's not on this list and Ryan Reynolds is not on this list of.
Oh, I think it's absolutely purposeful. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think they're saving those for Secret Wars. Of course, we get our Fantastic Four, which is coming out this summer with Vanessa Kirby, Evan Moss-Bachrach, Joseph Quinn, and Pedro Pascal. A jury's still out whether they're going to be interacting, what the relationship is there with Robert Downey Jr.'s version of Doom.
Right.
We get the Thunderbolts. This was the one that kind of surprised me, that basically the entire core Thunderbolts cast, Sebastian Stan, Wyatt Russell, Florence Pugh, Lewis Pullman, David Harbour, Hannah John Kamen, all of them have been out. So it's like, I guess they all make it in the Thunderbolts. I guess they're.
You know who's definitely not making it? Taskmaster.
Here's the thing. I don't know if we talked about this. I think unfortunately, I'm going to be proven wrong here because people have been speculating, Taskmaster's not in the trailer a lot, so Taskmaster's going to die. My hope is we never see Taskmaster in the trailer outside of the mask, so there's no confirmation that it's the same actress as from Black Widow, or that it's even an actress at all. And my hope has been, because famously in the Thunderbolts comics, Zemo is a big part of the Thunderbolts. My hope is that the reveal is that the person under the mask is actually Zemo. And that's why we're not seeing a lot of them in the trailers, that we're kind of like secretly getting Zemo in there without people knowing.
Right.
This is making me think like, no, I guess Taskmaster is going to die. That's a bummer.
Yeah. Well, I remember, I can't remember if it was a D23 or it was a Comic-Con. When they initially announced the lineup, they specifically stated that Olga Kurylenko was going to come back to play Taskmaster.
Interesting.
Like they used her name.
Yeah.
But ever since then, it's been absolutely peep quiet.
Yeah.
I think when they announced the filming, I don't think her name was included. I don't think it's been included in any press coverage at all. Nothing.
Yeah.
So they've left it purposely ambiguous. And I don't know if it's because maybe she didn't want to come back because she was like, the Black Widow movie, I was not into that.
Yeah.
Or they completely retooled who that character is and what that character is and what the character's role is in the movie. So it's very possible. Could it end up being Daniel Bruhl? Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Is that likely? I don't know. I just feel like the lack of Taskmaster in the new marketing, like the first trailer, there's brief glimpses of Taskmaster.
Yeah.
But in all the recent stuff, absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
Absolutely nothing. And now having this cast announcement, and I get it, it's not the whole cast, there's going to be more actors, but the fact that you've included all of you put Sentry in the damn
Sentry, who as far as the trailers are implying that he's the antagonist, and it's like, he's still in this movie, so yeah. So the fact that he's I don't know, I think that's also really weird, is like you announce this cast and you put Lewis Pullman in it, but then the trailers are not explicitly saying that he's Sentry. He's like silhouetted in all the marketing. So just pick a lane. Just tell us he's Sentry. We all know. Everyone knows. It's not a surprise anymore. Exactly.
Are we supposed to be surprised by the suit? I don't know.
And I guess if Taskmaster's supposed to be secretly another character, you wouldn't blow that by announcing it here. So maybe there's still a chance. I just want the answer is we don't see a lot of Taskmaster, and it's because the character dies, like, that's lame. That's not going to be surprising or shocking anymore. So I'm hoping there's something different going on there.
Yeah, like maybe we see the movie and it actually ends up being Daniel Bruhl, and then they make an announcement a week later, like Daniel Bruhl is now in Doomsday. Yeah. So then the other one, of course, is who I'm going to be labeling as our new Avengers for this one, which includes some old Avengers. We got Chris Hemsworth, Anthony Mackie, Letitia Wright, Paul Rudd, Simu Liu, and Danny Ramirez. Some of the notable absences here. I mean, now with the shows, there's so many, but no Benedict Cumberbatch, Doctor Strange, who, from my understanding, that has been confirmed for Secret Wars at least. No Tom Holland Spider-Man. We'll get into that more later. Of course, no She-Hulk, no Moon Knight, no Miss Marvel, no Captain Marvel. That's interesting. No Wanda Maximoff.
Here's the one that blows my. Well, technically, as far as we know, that character's dead. None of the Young Avengers characters we've been seeding, but I think that's probably because they're going to get their own Disney Plus whatever show. That if I were Marvel, I would have tie into this. I would have kind of be an interstitial, here's what the Young Avengers were up to while Doomsday is going on, leading into Secret Wars. The one that is surprising is no Tiana Paris as, what was it, Photon?
Monica
Rambeau.
Photon,
yeah. Was her superhero name? That character in the comics has had multiple superhero names. And because last time we saw her, she was over in one presumes the Kelsey Grammer X-Men universe we're going to be seeing. Right. So that feels like an easy gateway into what's going on over there. So you think they'd announce her? Was surprising to me.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And it was Monica Rambeau and her mom, whose name is currently escaping me.
Maria Rambeau, and she was binary. They gave her the binary identity.
Yeah, so yeah, that was a very interesting choice to not make those announcements, because yeah, one would assume that post credit scene is the X-Men universe we're going to tap into.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, why would you not announce that? Maybe that's a casting announcement that's going to come later. Maybe they had a specific reason why they just wanted to focus on these main characters. But yeah, I think the new Avengers part of it is interesting. I guess my theory for the time being is that all of those characters that you mentioned, they're also incredibly powerful characters.
Yes.
You know, Doctor Strange, Photon, you know, all that stuff, Captain Marvel.
Yeah.
It makes me think that if they are not announced in this movie and they are actually not in the film, then it's kind of like the Infinity War endgame of it, right?
Yeah.
Infinity War was all about all of the characters on separate teams, and then at the end, the ones who are like the newer characters die, and we have to force the original 6 Avengers plus a few other newer Avengers to save the universe. So it makes me feel like they're kind of doing something similar here, where all of the characters who end up not making it into Doomsday are going to have to be recruited, the new Avengers, whether it's by Captain Marvel and maybe characters like War Machine and, you know, et cetera, Spider-Man, to then be recruited. And they're going to recruit Kate Bishop. They're going to recruit Miss Marvel, you know, whoever the other remaining new Avengers are. And they're going to have guys like maybe Incredible Hulk, maybe with his son, maybe with She-Hulk, maybe Daredevil finally.
Yeah, that's the one I was hoping for. I'm like, throw Charlie Cox in here. Give me.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I think that's going to be the opportunity to get those characters with a guy like Doctor Strange, who, oddly enough, I feel like they had talked about teeing him up as being sort of like the next leader of the Avengers, the Tony Stark type of character. They haven't really followed through with that completely. But I think like whoever's left on the board, those are going to be the characters that are going to have that will be a big part of Secret Wars. And maybe they're going to have to end up rescuing whatever characters are left over in Doomsday, which I'm presuming are going to be characters like the Thunderbolts, the remaining Avengers, and who would be left? The Fantastic Four, because I think they're going to integrate those characters into our universe.
Yeah.
So I think that's going to end up kind of being the whole rebooting of the universe. Is they're just going to cherry pick the things that they want to keep, and everything else will die off. And that might include bringing in characters like Tobey Spider-Man, Andrew Garfield Spider-Man. I think that's where Deadpool and Wolverine are going to come in. I think that's where we're going to get that scene with Thor and Deadpool come to fruition in Secret Wars. So yeah, I think that's how it's going to play out. I don't think that they're going to reveal all the characters. I think there's going to be some surprises, obviously, because that's what Marvel does.
Yeah.
And I think any characters that end up not showing up, people are going to be disappointed, but you got to remember there's still another Avengers film coming out literally the year after that. And I think that's where a lot of those other characters are going to come into play.
Absolutely. The last little bit are characters that I'm calling unaffiliated. Like Namor, because you know theoretically he could be part of the Avengers team, but it seems unlikely. Winston Duke, I feel like he's going to show up similar. Like we're going to stop in on Namor when we see what's going on with Atlantis. It's not called Atlantis in the movie, but I don't remember the name right now. When we stop in with Wakanda, that's when we'll see Winston Duke. Tom Hiddleston, theoretically he could be part of the Avengers team, but he's the god of the multiverse, so that seems unlikely. And then of course
that's going to be awesome.
Yeah, and then Robert Downey Jr. of course as Doom.
Right.
And before we go into, I want to talk about that Spider-Man 4 rumors that are floating around. But before we do that, we got some questions from the Discord, which you can participate in over on the Patreon. Jake Hefner asked, with as hard as Disney seems to be trying to hype Doomsday like this, do you think this might be their way of trying to finish off the MCU with a bang? Or is Hector right and the MCU will go on forever? Adam? I'm sorry, you're going to get roped into this ongoing debate we've been having with Hector about the nature of the MCU. Roxy is team reboot. She thinks they should reboot. I'm team they're gonna reboot. I don't know if whether they should or shouldn't, but they're definitely gonna. And Hector is like, no, it's going to be this way forever. Once Anthony Mackie's done, there's going to be a new cap, and then a new cap after that. And I applaud his optimism. I don't necessarily agree with his conclusions because of the way Hollywood works. I think they're going to want another Steve Rogers sooner rather than later. What is your do you think this is gonna? I think it sounds like, based on stuff you're saying, we're at least on the same page of at least after this a soft reboot, one that integrates, one presumes, the Fantastic Four and the idea of the X-Men into the Marvel universe. Do you think soft reboot? Do you think more hard reboot? What do you think Doomsday and Secret Wars lead us?
Yeah, well, and honestly, like I don't even know if I would call it I think it's cherry picking. I know I mentioned it earlier, but it makes and I don't think they even needed to do this. I don't really know. I think because they leaned into the multiverse saga, it's kind of forcing them to do this, because I think the moment you introduce a character that looks like an actor that we previously saw, the audience immediately goes, "Oh, they're going to tie in those X-Men from Fox into the Disney Marvel universe."
Yeah.
And I think to avoid that, you got to kill those characters completely and say, sayonara, they're done.
Yeah.
They're completely done. And then you just cherry pick the things that you want. So I don't even think it's necessarily like a reboot per se. I think it's mostly just realigning everything and getting everything onto one path and then moving forward.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think there's going to be a universe where they're going to like, okay, we're done with Tom Holland, we're going to bring in someone else to play Peter Parker.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're going to just bring in Miles Morales.
Yeah.
And they don't even need to bring him in from another universe, because they introduced his uncle in Spider-Man Homecoming.
Yeah.
So I think that's what it's going to be. I think that they needed to find in their minds, a logical way to bring in the Fantastic Four. And they wanted to do this retro futuristic sort of vibe and then bring him into our universe. However they decide to do that, and however they justify why Reed Richards can't figure that out, that's on them. But yeah, I don't think it's going to be a reboot. I don't imagine you're going to see Steve Rogers again. I would not. I don't think I would enjoy that, truthfully.
Yeah.
If all of a sudden they're like, "Oh, here's a brand new actor playing Steve Rogers," I'd be like, "Well, what the fuck was the point of giving it to Sam then?" I think once Sam is done, they'll pass it on to someone else. That could be Joaquin Torres, or they maybe will reboot it down the line. But I think now it's so soon after Infinity War. I just also don't think Chris Evans wants to play Cap again. So even if you reboot it with a new Steve Rogers, you're not getting Chris Evans. So what would be the point?
Yeah, I think the point of doing, in my opinion, I remember leaving Endgame and thinking, well, the next thing is you do Secret Wars as an excuse to bring back, for your next big event, to bring back Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man and Chris Evans as Cap, because multiverse, that's how you do it. And then they started doing multiverse and they started working with Secret Wars. And so I still hold on to that belief that Chris Hemsworth is already back. RDJ is back as Doom. I still think, and maybe this is wishful thinking on my part, I still think this is like a play to be like, he's back as Iron Man, but we're not telling people. He's going to be Doom in the first movie. But he's also going to be Iron Man again, a multiverse Iron Man. That's going to be, I think, because I just think there's no way in Secret Wars you're not going to get a shot with Hugh Jackman's Wolverine. There's no way you're going to leave that movie without a shot that includes Hugh Jackman's Wolverine, RDJ's Iron Man, Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man. Like that shit's going to happen, and you're going to back the money truck up back to Chris Evans to have him be Cap again. And that's going to be a thing. I would not be surprised, because of the way Hollywood works, if that we are introduced to a new Steve Rogers in this new timeline, because you got to imagine those shareholders are chomping at the bit for that shit. They're like, give us those white Avengers back.
Oh my God. That would be
back.
So stupid.
Yeah.
So stupid.
I mean, it's been like 20 years and we've already had at least 3 Spider-Men. So, it's not,
yeah. I guess the difference is, though, is that they've all been like, they're part of their own universes. Yeah. To now retroactively go back and say, like, here's our new white Steve Rogers, I'd be like, well, what are we doing? Yeah. I think as a fan, that would be incredibly disappointing. Yeah. And, like, let's be honest, if anybody wants a white Steve Rogers again, they want Chris Evans, and he doesn't want to do it. Yeah. So why would you force in it makes no sense to me. Yeah, I mean, we'll see. Kevin Feige has also said that like the future is X-Men, so great, lean into that. Yeah. I will say I am bummed that like, and maybe we'll get, because of what I'm talking about with Secret Wars, it's like there's still stuff which we could do with Anthony Mackie, and I think he's great at Cap. I think he's great at Sam Wilson, and I actually think he's the best part of the Brave New World. But like,
want to see Captain America interact with Punisher and Daredevil, and I want to see, you know what I mean? Like, there's that nerd of me. Like, there's that. So one more question. I don't think they're trying to finish, just to answer Jake Hefner's, I don't think they're trying to finish the MCU with a bang, but they're trying to end this era with a bang. And I do think it also comes from Hollywood's misguided energy of like, we always got to top ourselves. It's always got to be bigger. And it's like, that's impossible. That's not a reasonable goal to have.
It's the same thing when people talk about, the multiverse saga, how it's like, nothing's happened yet. And I'm like, yeah, man, because they can't go bigger than Endgame in the next movie right after Endgame. You got to build back up to it. I will say, there are valid arguments to be made about how maybe they fumbled building up to something or making us fall in love with a team of Avengers. I still don't even really know who the Avengers are technically.
I think in hindsight,
that's fine.
I think in hindsight, that was a mistake. It's like, I understand you think the next Avengers movie needs to be bigger than Endgame. That's impossible. So what you should do, in the Avengers movies were good demarcation points for the phases, and for like casual Steven people like me who follow this pretty regularly. I don't even know what phase we're in right now. Adam, I don't know. Off the top of my head, I don't remember what phase we're in.
We're in 6 right now, I think.
Sure. But I was able to keep track of that easier because every phase ended with an Avengers movie. And so it's like, do a version of Kree Skrull War, but Sam's Cap in this version. And you know what I mean? Like, and so now I know then Shang-Chi's back. We haven't seen Shang-Chi since Shang-Chi, 4 years ago, 5 years ago?
Dude, that to me is like one of the biggest crimes of this whole thing. I'm just like, oh my God, I had to wait for an Avengers movie to get, that's, I think, the other frustrating part, right? Is like most of the characters from phase 1 through 3 had at least 2 films. At least 2. Literally, I don't think a single new character that's been introduced has had a second season of a show or a sequel. I don't think, right?
No, I agree. Not that I can think of.
What the fuck? Why did I gotta wait 4 years to see Shang-Chi again?
100%. Leonard Kim asked, do you think they're leaving other cast members unnamed, or do you think this is truly the full cast list?
Oh, no. They said it's not the full cast list.
Okay. That's crazy. Because 27 people. That's a lot of people.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're going to get to one of the most outstanding missing members, which is, of course, Tom Holland's Spider-Man. Where is he? He's a big deal. Here's some rumors that have been floating around. This is via Superhero Hype, and they got it from Jeff Snyder, who's a popular leaker. According to Snyder, Holland likely won't be in Avengers Doomsday, not because he's filming Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey at the same time that the Russo brothers MCU ensemble movie is in production, but rather because Spider-Man 4 could, quote, take place at the same time as Doomsday. Quote, the latest rumor has Chameleon as the villain, only they won't necessarily be called Chameleon because that character recently appeared in Kraven the Hunter, even though that movie barely scratched the surface of the character's potential, Snyder wrote. We can take that one with a grain of salt, but that's how it was described to me by one source. I don't love the idea of Chameleon being the villain, but I will say, if it takes place during Doomsday, and so Spider-Man's doing other stuff during Doomsday, that might mean maybe that we get a more street-level Spider-Man movie, and that is what this boy wants. I desperately want, anybody that watched the show knows, it's like, here's what I need from you, Marvel. I need, especially watching Born Again, I need a Spider-Man movie where he teams up with Daredevil and maybe Punisher to take on Vincent D'Onofrio's Kingpin. I need it. Give it to me. And if Vincent D'Onofrio's Kingpin's collaborating with the Chameleon, great. But the headline is, I need Spider-Man. I need Tom Holland's Spider-Man to hang out with Daredevil, Charlie Cox's Daredevil. That's all I need from you.
I just watched Kraven the Hunter like a month and a half ago, 2 months ago.
Sorry for you. Sorry.
No, it was fine.
Yeah.
It's not there's no Chameleon in that movie. It's Rhino.
Yeah, at the very end, there's the very end bit where his brother becomes.
That's true. That's true.
You get like one frame of like, yeah, correct. That's the Chameleon, and then movie over. I'm like, all right,
yeah, whatever. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I agree. Yeah, and I mean, truthfully, part of me would not be surprised if part of the reason that he can't do it is because he is filming The Odyssey, because that's literally shooting right now.
Yeah,
right now. And I think it is a little bit unrealistic to expect Tom Holland to go from 2 massive movies like that, and then to also like go do Spider-Man right after. I'm pretty sure we'd kill him. I'm pretty sure he would cease to exist.
And also, if you're Tom Holland, you're taking that Chris Nolan phone call. That's the movie you're doing.
Absolutely, without a doubt.
Yeah.
And to then overlap that with doing a Spider-Man movie, yeah, that's not a possible thing. Like
Yeah.
wouldn't, they would not be able to get that Spider-Man movie out when they want to. So
Yeah.
I mean, I think with the way that No Way Home ends, it very much ends on the note of this is homegrown Spider-Man. He for the streets now.
Yeah.
And it is the outcry for Spider-Man and Daredevil being in a movie together is undeniable at this point. It would be foolish. It would be absolutely absurd and dumb to not do a Spider-Man movie. And like, look, they might have some really cool plan for Spider-Man 4. Like, we've got one casting announcement.
Yeah.
But I think it would be incredible to have Charlie Cox, Vincent D'Onofrio, Tom Holland, and maybe John Bernthal and Sadie Sink in the same movie together, and have it be street level and have it be about some of the events that are happening in the Daredevil show, but not all of them.
Yeah.
But then, what is that taking away from the Daredevil show? That's the other thing to keep in consideration. I don't know. But yeah, I think it'll be really, really cool to see those characters interact and to see. I'm just excited for Spider-Man to not be so tech-based. Yeah. It's been great for the Spider-Man movies that we've had, but I'm happy to be moving away from the tech-based stuff. And to also just see, like, what is the end result of wiping everyone's memory of Peter Parker? How does that character rebuild his identity? What are we doing there?
I think our little soft reboot, Secret Wars, will fix that for us. I think that'll be
probably,
be a thing.
Yeah.
But I'm interested. Yeah, I'm interested to see who Sadie Sink's playing. I'm with Mike Joyce in the chat. He says Chameleon would be lame. I kind of feel the same way, and maybe that's the Craven of it all. That my most recent touch with that character was in a movie I didn't particularly like. Although if they said like, hey, Craven's going to be the villain, I'm like, ooh, a good villain, a good one, good, because I like Craven and I like Craven in the comics. So,
right.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm interested. But yeah, if we're doing another Tom Holland trilogy, Marvel, all I need is Spider-Man and Daredevil, Spider-Man and the Fantastic Four, Spider-Man and the X-Men. That's it. And when I say Spider-Man and the X-Men, I mean the MCU X-Men. I don't need him hanging out with Hugh Jackman. That's not what I need. I need to see.
I want to see Tom Holland, Joseph Quinn.
Yeah,
shooting the shit.
Yes. And that's when they were talking about multiverse stuff. I was like, the next Spider-Man is going to be another multiverse thing. It's like, if you mean him in the Fantastic Four, I'll allow it. Even though I don't like that the Fantastic Four is multiverse, I'll be like, okay, I just don't need to see him hanging out. You did it. No Way Home was great. You did it. Mission accomplished. Give me the other things I want. If we're only getting 3 more movies with this guy, give me what I want. So we'll see. But
here's a question for you. And we don't have to make this like a whole huge conversation, but does the idea of the way that Marvel Studios has handled the multiverse concept give you any sort of apprehension about DC Studios tapping into that same thing at some point?
Yes. Yes, it does. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, especially you don't even have to go back. You just have to look at Flash and the way it used it. It's like, that's true. This is bad. Oof. It's one of those, like, I don't care about seeing Michael Keaton's Batman in a world that's not the Tim Burton world, hanging out with a character he has no relationship with. That was not the appeal of, and I feel like that's what they lost in a lot of the multiverse stuff. And Marvel is the one that got it right, I thought, was No Way Home, because it is a version of the character interacting with other versions of the character, and those versions are there to tell him something about himself. And it is there to progress Peter Parker's story and not just be like, look at these Easter eggs, isn't that cool? And they were cool, but it was all about, like, here's my experience being Spider-Man and how that might inform you. That's what made that meaningful, at least for me as a fan of the character and a fan of those movies.
Yeah, I agree.
And so it's not, I actually really liked Multiverse of Madness because I like Sam Raimi as a director, and I thought he was allowed to do a lot of his Sam Raimi stuff in it, and I think he's one of the best to do it. So I thought that was great. The part that I didn't love was here's the Illuminati, here's these Easter eggs. Like, I don't care about this. I don't care. None of this means anything to me. So I
think it would have more weight and meaning in the sacred timeline.
Yeah, and it's just, or like, I don't know. So I'm hopeful. James Gunn has said a lot of things that make me hopeful, like when he talks about having writers' rooms, and when he talks about we're not going to film until there's a script, and when he talks about, like, people are going to be off in their own little corners. I mean, like, I hope he understands that I really want to see that Superman hang out with that Jon Stewart. That's something I would want to see as a fan. but like, it's tough because there's actually more for DC to pull from multiverse wise because there's been more iterations, but we also kind of saw that in Crisis of Infinite Earths, the Arrowverse crossover. What about you? Redirecting the question back to you. How does this make you feel about any sort of DC multiverse type thing?
I mean, I think the fact that Marvel Studios did it first at that scale.
Yeah.
I know Flash did it, but to do it at the scale that Marvel Studios did,
absolutely,
you just know that James Gunn, being the comic book lover that he is looking at it and going, okay, here's what I would have done differently. Here's how I think if we tap into it, here's how we could do it better. And I feel like a lot of it is just about the lead up, right? It's about the lead up. It's about execution. And it's also not about just being like fan service, cameo.
Yeah.
It's got to be meaningful. And I think Spider-Man No Way Home was the perfect example of these other people. I mean, God damn it. The scene with Andrew Garfield being like, she was my MJ. I'm like, that's so good.
Yeah.
That it has to be to that level. It needs to have some sort of an emotional impact that when he saves MJ, you go, God damn it, he got his redemption.
Yep.
And it's great because he's with the other Spider-Man, and Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man is making him feel like he matters, that he is important.
Yeah. The best scene
it just recontextualizes so much about that character.
The best scene in that movie is when the three of them are on that scaffolding just shooting the shit about beating Spider-Man. That's it. Yeah, you know what I mean? Yeah. Like, there's other cool things in that, but the best scene in that movie is like, oh, I never got to fight an alien. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
that's cool.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that like if you're as, and I have a lot of confidence in James Gunn, so I think you're looking at all of that and you're going, what works emotionally? Yep. And I think if they were to ever in any way tap into a multiverse thing, plus I don't know, I also don't feel like, and maybe I'm wrong, but I don't feel like if James Gunn were to tap into a multiverse universe, I don't think he's going to all of a sudden be like, here's Henry Cavill's Superman. Here's Ben Affleck's Batman. Here's, whatever random, like, I think it would be a different actor completely that we've never seen before. And he'd be like Red Sun Superman.
Yeah.
I don't think it would be something, I don't think he's going to tap into and be like, here's Helen Slater or Supergirl. I just don't think he would do that. I could be totally wrong. I feel like it's going to be something completely different where it's like, oh, it would be a very unique casting choice and it would just be there for emotional impact, not to necessarily be like, here's a fun cameo.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
remains to be seen.
Remains to be seen. And I think he's smart enough to know that like he's got to nail just getting started first. Like we got to get off the starting line, and then
he's far away from even thinking about that. I feel like
I need my Superman movie to work. I need my Lantern show to work. I need my Supergirl movie to work, and then if all those work, then we'll get going. I need to figure out whatever I'm doing with Batman.
There's so much to be done.
Are you team new Batman or have Robert Pattinson's Batman be the Batman?
No, let Pattinson be in his own universe. I'm good. I also like it takes Matt Reeves way too long to make each of these films. So like if he's gonna have creative input on Robert Pattinson being in the DC universe, my God, we'll never get there. And I'm not mad about it. Like I loved the Batman so much that yes, I am frustrated it's taken this long to get that sequel made. And there's like rumors that Matt Reeves has personal stuff going on in his life. I'm like, cool, man.
Yeah.
Figure that out. I'll be here whenever you do the next one. And if it's a trilogy, sure, I'll wait another 3-4 years for the next one, whatever. But I liked that movie being in its own universe. And I think it just fits better to be in its own universe. And yeah, like give me I don't know. I want that Batman animated series version that looks like it can sit next to David Corenswet's Superman. Pattinson, I don't really feel like it fits that much, but
well,
I know I'm maybe in the minority there.
Yeah, we'll see. I do. We will see. But right now, I just had to remind myself what we reminded ourselves about the multiverse. I just need that Superman movie to be good. Let's get now more than ever. I could use a good Superman movie.
All I care about right now is like I need that Superman movie to be the best movie ever, truthfully.
Yeah, like, exactly. That's all I need. I just need it to be the best movie of all time. Okay, real quick, let's go through this list. To wrap up, I want to go through this whole list and I want to see who we think is going to show up in Secret Wars. Because I think a good chunk of this cast is not going to show up in Secret Wars, which is why we're getting him here. Chris Hemsworth, I think he's going to be in Secret Wars.
Yes.
Yeah.
He'll be in everything.
Vanessa Kirby, I also think is safe. I think, but all the Fantastic Four are going to be good.
Yes.
They're all right. Anthony Mackie.
Oh, I mean, I would hope so. He's Captain America.
Okay, so we think he's in Secret Wars. Sebastian Stan. I think there's a chance we don't see him in Secret Wars.
But where would he go?
Well, I think either, we're going Battle World, so he could die, or he could, I mean, especially if, depending on if we get a soft reboot out of Battle World, like once we undo Battle World, things kind of reset to a certain degree, then we could kill off a character like Bucky, but then reset and he's back. Here's what I would want to see if we keep him in Secret Wars. Because I think we're going to get a lot of, here's 3 Spider-Men, here's 3 Captain Americas, here's 3 Thor. You know what I mean? Like Jane Foster Thor could come back. You know what I mean? Like, I would really like to see, because my favorite version of Captain America is Bucky Cap. And so I would like to see, if you give me a Bucky Cap tease, if he's just in the costume for a minute, that would be cool for me.
Interesting.
Sell me that toy, I will buy it. Yeah,
that's interesting. I hadn't thought about that, but yeah, that is very much a possibility that they could do that.
Yeah. Letitia Wright, I think, is probably safe. Although it wouldn't surprise me if we get a new T'Challa in Secret Wars.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. Yeah, because they do set up at the very end of Wakanda Forever the new T'Challa,
baby T'Challa. But I think we're gonna get a multiverse T'Challa that ends up like the Fantastic Four becoming our main T'Challa.
Right. Yeah, I think that's very possible. Yeah,
Paul Rudd probably is gonna be in Secret Wars, don't you think?
Or Stature.
Do you think he's gonna get a line like, whatever that King guy fought? Remember they had a whole bit. They had a whole bit at the end of Quantumania where it's like, I hope I beat him. What if he comes back? Oh my God. And it's like, no, you did. You beat him.
I know. That's, yeah.
King got his ass handed to him by Ant-Man.
That's a good, I mean, I feel like Paul Rudd is the type of guy who could be like a Hemsworth. Like he'll go on and make more of these.
More of them. Yeah. Wyatt Russell is not going to be in Secret Wars. I'm going to throw the gauntlet down there. I think most of the Thunderbolts are not going to carry over into Secret Wars.
Really? Yeah. I mean, I could see that. They're definitely, well, except for Yelena. I feel like
Yelena's safe because she's one of the few, like, that's one of the more bankable
she's like
people.
A fan favorite. You kill Yelena like full time, you're gonna lose a ton of people. I'm like, nah, what the fuck, man? You can't do that.
Tenoch Huerta Mejia, I don't think he's gonna be in Secret Wars.
Namor.
Yeah,
I don't know like what kind of a role he would have, so maybe not. But I think he'll come out of it obviously like rebooted and he'll be fully integrated.
Yeah, I don't think. By the way, me saying they're not going to be in Secret Wars doesn't mean they're dead. It just means
they're
that
dying
like,
full time.
We're focusing on here. And we're going to open up some space to not focus on them in Secret Wars because we're going to have other things to do.
It's like it's the same thing like I mentioned earlier. It's like the Infinity War Endgame.
Yeah. Exactly.
Sort of thing.
Yeah. I'm going to skip over the rest of the Fantastic Four people because I think they're all safe. Simu Liu, I think, will probably be in Secret Wars.
Oh yeah, I think so.
Florence Pugh, we just said, she's definitely going to be there. Kelsey Grammer B, sorry, Fox X-Men characters. I do not think he will be in Secret Wars.
None of them.
Lewis Pullman, I'm honestly kind of surprised he's in Doomsday.
Yeah. I think. God, will Sentry be a pivotal character in Secret Wars? I guess considering the power set, yes.
Yeah.
But maybe not because maybe that's too powerful.
Yeah, because we got a Doctor Strange running around. We'll probably get a Wanda back.
Maybe no then.
Danny Ramirez. I love Jim Brave New World. I don't think you're going to make the cut for Secret Wars.
I don't think so either.
It's ask Anthony Mackie. It's easy to cut a falcon. It's easy to cut a falcon.
Easy to trim them wings. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. David Harbour. Sorry, David. Don't think you're going to be in Secret Wars.
I don't think so either.
Winston Duke. Ooh, sorry, bud. Don't think you're going to be in Secret Wars.
No, I don't think so either.
Hannah John Kamen. Sorry, Ghost. Be grateful you're in Doomsday, if I'm being honest.
Oh, man.
Tom Hiddleston, maybe.
Hiddleston, yes. Yeah. I think Hiddleston will. I think that God Loki will play a pretty big role in both of those movies.
Yeah. I'm going to lump in all of the X people: Patrick Stewart, Ian McKellen, Alan Cumming, Rebecca Romaine, James Marsden, Channing Tatum. Sorry, gang. I don't think you're going to be in Secret Wars.
I don't think so either.
Yeah.
I don't think so either.
I think the only Fox people. I
don't think so. Yeah.
I think the only Fox people are going to be Hugh Jackman Wolverine and Ryan Reynolds Deadpool. That'll be it. That'll be the representation.
Yeah. I guess the only character that I'm like, maybe there's a chance it would be Channing Tatum's Gambit.
Yeah, because we like doing that. I'm also kind of surprised Halle Berry's not here, and we might be sitting on her for Secret Wars to get like a full.
Yeah,
storm.
that's actually a really good point. Like, what are other X-Men characters from that universe who would be cool to bring back? Halle Berry would definitely be one of them.
Just because of the Cyclops thing, where it was another character that's fantastic that did not get utilized well.
Yeah, like, and so if you're going to do that, are you going to bring back Famke Janssen as Jean Grey? Are you going to bring back Anna Paquin as Rogue? I don't know. I think Halle Berry is the likeliest one to show up.
Pedro Pascal's safe. And Robert Downey Jr., we already know he's coming back as Doom in Secret Wars, right?
I don't know. I actually don't know if they've... Well, I mean, the Russo... I would have to imagine that he is going to be a pivotal part of both movies.
Yeah.
Who else would, I guess, be the villain of Secret Wars?
Here's my question. Last thing. We'll end on this. Are we going to be introduced to another Doom? Is the RDJ of it all kind of a feint where it's like, yeah, he is going to be the Doom of Doomsday, and then we're going to introduce another one, and that's going to be our opportunity to bring RDJ back as Iron Man for one last hurrah, and there's going to be another Doom that is our Doom.
That's a really good question. Like, I don't think that RDJ is going to be full-time Doom in the MCU.
They can't afford it. They can't afford it.
Yeah, I think that would be such a weird, a weird choice, but I just don't think that that's the route they want to go. Same thing with X-Men. So, but do I think that we're going to come out of this with Pedro's Fantastic Four and their version of Doom? I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't feel super confident about it. I think that they're going to do a sequel to Fantastic Four that'll come out maybe in like 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
And that will be the proper introduction to the Sacred Timelines version of Dr. Victor Von Doom.
Victor Von Doom.
I don't think we're going to come out of Secret Wars with that happening. I could be wrong. I don't know.
We'll see. We'll see. Over in the chat, Grayson, going back to our Spider-Man conversation, he's like, I'd like a take of the SM Juggernaut comic, but with Rhino. He doesn't have to be the big bad of the movie, but I need a tired Peter Parker with a stubborn Rhino. I've mentioned on Spider-Versity multiple times. Turns out I'm actually a pretty big Rhino fan. And I've yet to get a real good version of him in a movie. And so that would be cool. Leonard Kim says the villain of Secret Wars is actually screen time.
No kidding.
Everybody,
and it's going to be another 3-hour epic. So here we go.
Here we go, everybody. Buckle in, buckle up. Oh, Star-Lord not on this list. Probably going to be in Secret Wars.
Oh, true. No Guardians of the Galaxy. I would be really well. I don't know. It's hard with Peter Quill because of where the story ends. But we've got the new Guardians, so I would like to see those characters in Secret Wars. I do hope that they do something with those characters. I know that James Gunn was the guy who like did them so incredibly well. I wouldn't be opposed to someone coming in that has a take on it that is worth telling. But yeah, if they show up in Secret Wars, great.
Yeah. Well, also remember, Guardians 3 ends with Star-Lord will return. It says so.
That is also very true.
Yeah,
so
we'll see.
Yeah, I would say Secret Wars is a good chance he'll be there.
Adam, where can the kids find what you're working on?
You can just find me at Heroes Reforged. We're doing reactions every single week. We're going to be talking about this very same thing on our next Heroes Reforged podcast. So I'm very excited to talk about it and to see what the opinions are going to be in our group. And I feel like we need to have like one big Zoom therapy session with all of us. To be like, what are we doing here? What are they doing? What's the actual plan going to be?
Yeah, every person that talks, the inner circle that talks about this stuff, we all just need to get in and like, all right, gang, let's hash this out. What's happening? What are we doing?
Yeah, we need to do our own gigantic whiteboard crossover.
Yeah.
What's going to happen?
This does make me hopeful about Thunderbolts, that it's like, well, you guys have enough confidence in it that all those characters are coming back for Doomsday. Right. So hopefully because I'm hoping it's good. I like all those characters. So, and also, like I said at the top, if you're not following Heroes Reforged, if for no other reason, a beautiful streamlined content like this that's on your screen right now, so you too can keep track of all this stuff. They're well worth a follow. Check it out. Check out their podcast. There's one of them with this handsome boy on, at least one.
It's true.
We
talk about rebooting the Marvel Universe.
We do, because it's on my mind. It's on my mind. You can find me at DJ Talks Trash everywhere that matters, specifically Blue Sky is where I'm hanging out, so you can find me over there. Danger Boy, the Kickstarter is finished. It is funded. We reached both of our stretch goals. I want to thank everybody that backed it. That it's huge, especially with everything going on. I truly appreciate it. If you missed the campaign, the pre-order store will be coming up soon. So keep an eye out for that. And we will see you all next time. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.